If you've ever looked up the chords to a song and one of these has shown up, then you may have wondered what these chords are and why they're written down this way. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play easy power chords on guitar. To play a power chord on guitar, we're going to start by placing our first finger on the 5th fret of the low E string. So in this case, this is an A note. Next, we're going to bring our 3rd finger in and place it on the 7th fret of the A string. So if you visualize this as a shape, it's just placing your first finger down on the low E string, and then you're going across to the next string and up another 2 frets. If you find that this is a bit of a stretch, then make sure your thumb is positioned in a good place at the back of the neck. So somewhere between your 1st and 3rd finger. So in this case, somewhere about the 6th fret, and maybe towards the center of the back of the neck. So what we have here is an A power chord, or an A5. Now you've got the root, which is being pushed down with the 1st finger. This is our A note. And the 3rd finger is pushing down the 5th of A. Basically what that means is, if we were to play an A major scale starting from the A, and we gave each of these notes a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the 1, because this is an A as well, A, or an octave, then you find the 2 notes that we're pushing down are the 1, or the root, and the 5th note of that scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And together they form a power chord. Now, if some of that theory went over your head, don't worry too much about it. It's really not that important at this stage, as long as you know what the shape looks like and that it's called a power chord. Now, one of the great things about power chords is that they're shiftable, and what I mean by that is you can move them anywhere on the guitar neck and the shape remains the same. For instance, we could play it from the 5th fret. We could slide the whole shape down to maybe the 3rd fret, which in this case, our first finger's on a G, making it a G power chord. We could move it down to an F, which would be on the 1st fret. And we'd have an F power chord. So with this one simple shape, you can start moving it around the neck and see what sound you can produce. You can also shift this power chord to the A and the D strings by just lifting it up and moving it across. So we've gone from the E string and the A string, which was an A power chord, and we've lifted it up and moved it over to the A string and the D string, which would form a D chord because our first finger is now on a D. Likewise, try moving this chord around on the A and the D strings to see what different sounds you can come up with. And when you've had a go at that, try moving it from different string sets. So you can move it from the A and the D string to the E and the A string, and practice moving up and down also. See what you can come up with. So when you're playing power chords, you really only want to hear the notes that you're pushing down. So in this case, I'm back on an A power chord, and I'm pushing down the E string and the A string. So when we go to strum this, we should only hear those 2. A lot of the time that doesn't go so well, so you'll end up hitting all of them, or some of them. The fix for this is called left hand muting, and what this means is we're going to be pushing down our 1st finger, which is producing the root note, or the A in this case, but with the rest of the finger, you should make sure that it's resting very gently on all the other strings. So instead of us lifting up like this, which exposes all of the strings underneath, we want to just gently rest the rest of our finger on all of the strings. This takes a bit of a light touch, and like anything on the guitar, if you've not done it before, it takes a bit of practice, but it's what's going to clean up the sound of your power chords and enable you to really hit the guitar, rather than being too careful with the right hand, which doesn't really mix well with the idea of power chords. You can try this yourself. Try and push down our 1st power chord, our A power chord, and try and strum all the strings this time. And if you've done it well, you should only hear the 2 notes that you've played, and this mute sound that you'll get from muting the others will be mostly invisible. That will it'll just sound like a percussive hit. As soon as you've got that technique down, you don't need to be so careful with the right hand anymore, and you can just strum like you would with any other chord. A lot of people, me included, like playing this power chord not using the third finger, but using our little finger. So you can try it this way if you prefer also. But the most common way you'll see people playing this is with their third finger. Now, while you could start having fun with this concept and just moving it around the neck and seeing what you can come up with, I'd encourage you to stick around for the next section where I'll teach you how to memorize the notes on both the E string and the A string, which is essential at this stage if you want to be able to name and identify your power chords. To memorize the notes on the E and A strings, we need to first understand some basic concepts, which I'll go through in 4 steps. The musical alphabet functions much the same as our standard alphabet, however it only goes as far as G, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far. Now, in between every note we're going to place a sharp and a flat. So for example, in between an A and a B we would have an A sharp. We would call it this because it's 1 step higher than A. You could also call this same note a B flat because it's 1 step lower than a B. This is what's known as an enharmonic equivalent. There's 2 exceptions to this rule, and the only notes we won't place a sharp or flat between would be an E and an F. So E would jump straight to an F, and also B and C. So altogether that would look like this. Now with this knowledge you could apply this to the guitar straight away by climbing up through the notes of, for example, our A string, one by one until you get to the desired note. However, this method takes a lot of time and we need a much quicker way of identifying the notes, which brings us to step 4. If we focus on the dots or the fret markers that are placed on the 3rd, 5th, 7th and 9th frets of the guitar and memorize the notes that fall on these frets, then we can use these as checkpoints. So doing this on the E string would give us the notes G, A, B, and the final note C sharp, or you could call it D flat. And on the A string, this would give us the notes C, D, E, F sharp, or you could call it G flat. So if you can simply memorize 4 notes on the E string and 4 notes on the A string, then you should be able to jump to any one of these fairly quickly. And all that's needed to get to any of the notes that happen to fall outside of these is to count up from a note that you already know. For example, if you needed an A sharp note, you could quickly jump to our A note on the 5th fret of the low E string and move up 1 fret. If you needed to play a G flat note, you could quickly jump to our G note on the 3rd fret and move down 1 fret. And if you needed a C note, you could quickly jump to our B note on the 7th fret and move up 1 fret, because remember, B jumps straight to C, as does E and F. Once you've got these note names down, it really opens up the possibilities of the fretboard, and this will allow you to return back to learning songs that contain power chords with a bit more confidence, or perhaps even allow you to come up with your own songs or riffs and even write them down. You could also try converting songs you already know using open chords into power chords. For example, if your song contained the chords G, D, C, back to D again, then you could try doing the same thing with power chords. So we've got a G, a D, a C, and another D. Now I jumped between different string sets when I did that, but you could also just do it on the 1 string, but it requires a bit more movement up and down. So you could go from a G, up to a D, down to a C, and up to a D again. I chose to jump between string sets because it makes more sense and there's a bit less movement required. So once again, G moved to a D, which in this situation a D's here, and that's a bit closer than moving up to the D, which was at the 10th fret up here. So that's G, up to the D, which is closest, down 2 frets to this C, and then back up 2 frets to return to the D. Okay, so that concludes our lesson on how to play and name power chords. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this lesson and learned something from it, then consider supporting the channel by giving this video a like. You can also subscribe and make sure you ring the notification bell to get notified every time I release one of my weekly videos. See you in the next one.